Recep Tayyip Erdoğan is modern Turkey's longest-serving leader. Now he's extending his rule into a third decade. Tens of thousands of supporters are celebrating a victory that gives Mr Erdoğan, his AK party and its allies a mandate for the next 5 years.
We are very happy, full of joy. I can't even contain myself.
The victory is ours. How happy it is for us.
The election had been seen as one of the most consequential for Turkey and its 85 million people. As leader, Mr Erdoğan has centralised power around an executive presidency, which sets policy on the economy, security, domestic and international affairs. The opposition says the government has muzzled dissent, eroded democracy and sought to control the judicial system. Mr Erdoğan's also strengthened Turkey's position as a regional military power and alarmed NATO allies by maintaining close ties with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Economists say Mr Erdoğan's demands for low interest rates sent inflation to 85% last year and caused the value of the lira to plummet. Throughout the campaign, the president managed to deflect attention from deep economic troubles and his response to February's devastating earthquake to appeal to a nationalist and conservative base. Official results of the runoff election give Mr Erdoğan just over 52% of the vote and his challenger Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu just under 48%.
We want change. If there had been change, there would have been justice in Turkey.
Today's elections were a choice between a republic or a monarchy. This is what the people had to choose, and I guess the people chose a monarchy.
Mr Kılıçdaroğlu has labelled the results unfair. He's vowed to continue to fight for real democracy in Turkey. I'm joined now by Elmira Beyrazli, who's the Director of the Globalisation and International Affairs Program at Bard's College in New York. Thank you so much for your time. It's just gone 2 a.m. in Ankara. Will Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's supporters still be celebrating well into the night?
They have been. I think they've been celebrating since the first election that was 2 weeks ago on May 14th, when Erdogan actually defied a lot of the polls and did considerably well, even though he didn't meet the 50% threshold. I think that you saw the huge crowds you just showed when Erdogan was addressing people in Ankara. There was several thousands of people out. They were obviously celebrating and very happy that he has been reelected.
This is a history-making victory for Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, and we see his leadership enter a third decade. But Turkey remains a deeply polarised nation, doesn't it? The economy is really struggling with inflation still at more than 40%.
Absolutely. I mean, you showed the results of the election. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan got about 52% of the vote. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the opposition candidate, got about 48%. Which I think shows two things from this election. One is Erdogan's political dominance for the past 2 years is still in full force, and that divided 52 and 48% shows how bitterly divided Turkey is. You have a country that really is desperate to have change from a leader who has been there in power since 2003. And I think a lot of Turks have been concerned over the past several years because of the trajectory of Turkey's economy. You noted that inflation has reached a peak of 85%. And the government's response on the earthquake in early February was really deeply troubling. They really failed to deliver rescue operations to the affected areas, and yet the people still voted for President Erdogan.
What about the president's challenger, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, who managed to bring together 6 opposition parties from nationalists to Islamists? He's called it the most unfair election in years, but did not dispute the outcome.
So I think we need to take a step back, because I think elections in Turkey are generally conducted free, and I don't think that there was any fraud at the polls. However, they are unfair. Erdogan and his allies control the media. They control the information that Turks consume. 80% of Turks do not speak another language other than Turkish. And so they are not even able to go onto the internet and see what your news outlet or news outlets from abroad are saying about Turkey. And so whatever information the Erdogan government is feeding the people, that is the information that they're getting. And that really makes it a very unfair playing field. When you take a look at the number of hours that were focused in on Erdogan as a candidate, disproportionate. Kılıçdaroğlu got probably in proportion half or 75% of the airtime that Erdogan has. And so elections are deeply unfair in Turkey. Erdogan controls the media. He also controls a lot of the other government and state apparatus, such as the judiciary. He has stocked the election board with loyalists of his own, as well as a lot of government ministries.
Did you see the videos of Recep Tayyip Erdogan handing out cash to his supporters at a polling station today?
I did. And this is in line with Erdogan's image as a provider for the Turks. He catapulted to power in the early aughts after being a very successful mayor in Istanbul. As mayor of Istanbul, he repaired roads, he fixed public transportation, he cleaned up the streets, garbage got picked up. He was very much seen as a doer and someone who could provide for the Turkish people. As he was leading up to this particular election, the polls showed that he was very vulnerable. So I think it's one of the reasons that the opposition did do very well. And as he started seeing that a lot of Turks were growing unhappy with his handling of the economy, as well as the earthquake, what he started to do was he had promised in the weeks before this election, free natural gas to Turks. Obviously, natural gas and energy is very important to a growing nation. He was able to do that because Vladimir Putin has given Turkey gas on credit, and so there's going to be he'll have to pay up at some point. But it's one of the things that he has offered the people. In terms of workers, he's also raised wages. So him giving out money is also in line with him showing that he is the provider for the Turkish people.
Let's talk about that close relationship with Russia. Vladimir Putin has congratulated his dear friend. The US president, meanwhile, tweeted he's looking forward to continuing to work together as NATO allies on bilateral issues and shared global challenges. How will the international community be viewing this runoff result?
I think it was very interesting that you saw both President Biden from the United States as well as most EU leaders. I know that from the UK, France, and certainly from Brussels, they all congratulated Erdogan on his victory. I think the West is very much looking to try to repair relations with Erdogan and Turkey. They have been very contentious. I think Erdogan is going to see this victory as an opportunity to not only reset, but to kind of take stock on how he can actually put his vision for Turkey, kind of being this independent regional leader in the Middle East, but also playing a role on the global stage, particularly when it comes to the European Union and NATO.